Man, there's so many.
By the way, that's a subtle flex right there. What you just said, that's a subtle flex. Is there one? Yeah, there's so many. I did it so often, so great. I just don't know which one to choose. Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another episode of Half Forgotten History. We're swimming in Hall of Fame waters this week with none other than the great Calvin Johnson. Look, when he played for the Lions, you can make a very compelling argument. No one was better at what they did at their position in the NFL than he was at playing wide receiver. And the nickname Megatron, a much better nickname than his first nickname when he started playing high school and college. It was Butterfingers. True story. How did he get that nickname? Well, listen and find out. Here it is, Half Forgotten History with Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson. So I have to ask, like in your everyday life now, does anybody call you Megatron or is it strictly Calvin?
Yeah, I'm concerned. A lot of people don't even know my real name. I get Megatron all the time.
Still?
Still.
But nobody in like your inner circle refers to like you're Calvin to those people, right?
Yeah, I'm a nickname or some variation of Calvin or the letter C to all my family, of course. And they never call me Megatron.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the greatest nicknames in the history of the NFL, right? I mean, I know you'd rather probably be called by Calvin, but as far as nicknames go, that's got to be way up there.
I definitely got one of the best nicknames in sports. If not all time, definitely up there for sure. No doubt about it.
and Roy Williams gave you that, right?
Yeah, that's the same year that my rookie year was the year that the Transformers movie started, and
right.
It just timed out perfectly.
Yeah. And when he first called you that, what did you think it was going to stick, or did you like it? What was your initial reaction?
It didn't stick. I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, because it just caught me off guard. You start, saying that, I'm like, oh, the movie. Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, that's right. But no, it didn't stick the first year. It wasn't until like, throughout, halfway through my second year that people really started calling me Megatron. Announcers started using the name.
Yeah. Well, listen, it stuck now, and you're stuck with it. So I hope you're okay with that as we continue to go forward. When did you think that you might be really good at football? Like, was there a moment in high school? Like, because I know you like baseball and football equally, and your parents made sure you had to have A's and B's to play sports. They drove the academic part of it for you. Was there a moment at some point that you thought, I might be really good at this?
Yeah, probably like during my junior season, right before my senior season. Not only did I was starting to make plays, started to play down that horrible nickname I got in high school, Butterfingers. And then, I had my coach, he was breathing confidence into me as well.
Whoa. Time out. Your nickname in high school was Butterfingers?
Yeah. When I was growing into my body, I was less coordinated, put it like that.
Well, we all thank God, because now you and I have something in common. So that's great on an athletic level. So that's got to be somewhat ironic that you went from Butterfingers to one of the greatest receivers in the history of the NFL.
It's pretty funny. It's very funny. I worked my tail off just to beat down that moniker. It's after, I think, my sophomore season. I had just got put into receiver on varsity. I was just dropping passes left and right. And it was just ugly. And I just worked my tail off, just to focus and concentrate on the ball so I'm not dropping passes out here left and right. And it worked out,
Yeah, I think it worked out. I think that's a good way of summing it up. So was it the coach that gave you the butterfly nickname, or was it a teammate? Who was it?
It was teammates. I forget exactly who it was, and just started saying Butterfingers. And next thing you know, I just hearing it in the hallway at school. I was being bullied.
So okay. So what do you say when you see those guys now? Like, how do you like me now? Right? When you see those guys now, what do you say to them?
It's not even. You hear sometimes like, you remember when they just call you Butterfingers, man? That's crazy. I don't understand. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you were there. Like, you're one of the ones calling me Butterfingers. Like, but no, it's cool to look back and just see things that were huge deals at the time. Might have been huge social pressures at the time, weren't not necessarily so big at the end of the day.
Well, you played the long game, and you ended up winning for sure. So what was your recruiting process like? Because the story came out this year that Sean McVay beat you out as the Georgia State Player of the Year, and you had never heard that before. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. I had no idea until they started talking about it when he became a head coach out there in St. Louis. And I think I figured it out. I think he graduated like a year before me. So I
Yeah.
don't know how that worked. I didn't know. I thought it was just like a senior thing. I don't know. I have no idea how that worked. That's probably part of the reason I never heard of
Gotcha. Well, again, it's worked out well for both of you. So, what made what? And obviously, I know you're from Georgia, but was it always going to be Georgia Tech? What made you want to land there?
Yeah, originally I wanted to go to like a big program like Oklahoma, just
Yeah.
because there seemed like to be a lot of opportunity there. But then, after I really thought about it, after going on some visits, I realized I wanted to stay close to home where my family could come and see me play. I think that meant the most to me, giving them access to be able to come and see me. And they were at every game. I appreciated them.
Yeah.
My mom, dad, even my cousins and all those that were able to make it, aunties and whatnot, just because I was so close to home. That support system meant a lot.
It must have, because you retired as basically the greatest player in Georgia Tech history. Are you comfortable with that being the way people refer to you?
Did you say the greatest player in Georgia Tech history?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I don't have no issue with it.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that's. I would have a hard time if people did have a hard time with that, you know. But you almost went back for your senior year because you wanted to make sure you got that degree, right? What was your decision making process, and what was
It's
it that sort
funny.
of flipped you?
Yeah, that's a great question. During that time, I consulted with my parents, family, coaches. What was the right decision to make? What was the right thing to do? I went to school to get my degree. My mom was pushing me to get my degree. I wanted to get my degree. I had put so much work into to that point. But going to Coach Chan Gailey's office, who was the head coach at the time,
Yeah,
he was like, "I'll be remiss if I didn't tell you that you should go to the league because the opportunity it really doesn't get any greater than this."
yeah,
And just him being real, knowing his situation as a head coach, he could have used me as a player for sure another year. But just being realistic and true to who he said he was going to be and guide us to be the best, productive members of society that he could. And I can appreciate him for being realistic and telling me like, hey, you need to go.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, I don't have my degree yet, but I am glad I did make the decision to go.
Yeah. Well, listen, it worked out well, but you were the second overall pick in that draft in 2007 behind Jamarcus Russell. I'm sure Raider fans would like to have maybe seen that switch, but we can have that discussion a little later. But you kind of like freaked people out at the combine. Like, people now are your size in the league on somewhat of a regular basis, but at 6'5", 239 pounds, a broad jump of 11.7, 4.35, 40. Like, you were kind of a freak show, and people didn't know how to deal with you back then.
Yeah, it was weird, man. That whole combine situation, I had planned on doing not a thing, but everybody was like, "How are you going to run fast at 240 and yada yada yada?" I'm just like, man, I've been working out with the best speed coach in the world right now the last couple months, man. And funny thing is, we had like maybe like 2 or 3 of the 4 top times at that combine of that year, and I think 2 of them were receiver, Yamon Figures, myself, and the DB. Maybe LaRon Landry had the top time that year
Yeah,
too.
LaRon Landry.
But yeah, I was so confident in what we were doing, all the work that was put in. I called my agent up, Bus Cook, and I'm like, "Hey, can you send me some cleats next day?" And he sent me some cleats, and that's how the whole big story got started when they saw me getting my own cleats back from another guy who I let use my cleats because he didn't bring his cleats to the biggest audition of his life. So yeah, that's that.
That's not preparing very well. Who was that?
I forget the quarterback's name. I believe he was from East Carolina, though. I forget
Yeah.
his name, though.
Well, you know what? He probably didn't have the career he wanted because he didn't prepare the way Calvin Johnson did. You bailed him out at the combine. So what were your expectations going into the draft? What were you hearing? Because, you were rated as the number 1 player across the board.
Yeah. I kind of, it's funny, I feared going all the way to Cali, even though I love California. I fear going to Oakland just because it's so far away from everything that I know. I had I really wanted to stay in Atlanta to be able to play, grow up, play college, and then play professionally in front of the home team. That would have been awesome to me. But those are the 2 things. I wanted to be at home. I thought I was going to go to Tampa too because I had a great workout with Coach Gruden when he came up. I think Chris Sims was the quarterback at the time. They came up to do a little pro day. But so I thought it was Atlanta or Tampa. I thought I was going to stay in the South. And then I got shipped to Detroit, and I was probably even more homesick than I thought I would be in California.
Okay. That's not Atlanta, right? Let's just be honest. Detroit is not Atlanta. What was that adjustment like when you knew that's where you were going?
It was really just visually and more so. Detroit was beat down. We got off the plane, we went straight downtown to the stadium, and on the way, all you see is burnt down buildings. Buildings with busted out windows or just empty lots. I'm like, man, this is a kind of a depressing kind of view. But really when I think that when I got involved in the community, got to know my teammates, really started to understand Detroit, the people of Detroit, and really grew fond of them.
Yeah. How quickly did you realize that you were going to be good at the highest level? It's one thing to know you have a chance to do this, but then to get there and know that, yeah, I think I could be pretty good at this level is another sort of mental stratosphere.
100%. After my first year, going to my off season after my first year, I was like, okay, I know the things I got to work on. But I think starting that season in my second year, I think my mindset was such that I feel like I was so over prepared that it kind of felt a little bit easier than it was, way easier than it was the year before. I wasn't feeling like I was running in sand because I was so focused on learning the playbook that I wasn't playing fast. So I think that just having that freedom, you're playing fast, you know what you're supposed to do, along with just gaining confidence in your own ability and how to manipulate your body and size against all this top tier talent. I think that starting out that second season is when it really clicked that, all right, I got a chance to be pretty good here.
All right, so your second season was 2008. The next year, 2009, Lions have the number 1 overall pick, and they draft Matthew Stafford out of Georgia. How quickly did you think, okay, things are going to change now because of this guy is the quarterback?
Oh yeah, everybody was like, okay, we got what we need for success. We got everything we need to win the Super Bowl. We got Stafford, but having a great young talent like that, really is more about putting the pieces around him. We had Matthew and we had pieces here and there, but we just didn't have that whole ensemble, kind of like you saw LA do this year. Or the year before, they had the defense all together. They needed that one extra piece, so they went all in. That's kind of, I feel like, where you got to be nowadays in this league. When you have the opportunity, you have the Russell Wilsons or the Aaron Rodgers on your team. You got to go all in and put the pieces around them if you want to go and take it to the next level and win that championship, like we saw the last couple of years from the Bucs and LA.
And Stafford sort of was. I don't think people really appreciated how good he was because the Lions, didn't have the success that a lot of teams had. Yep. But I remember like the Cleveland Brown game. I can't remember was his rookie year or his second year where he just got racked, and he wanted to stay in the game because he got him down there, and then I think he dove over for the touchdown, the game-winning touchdown in that game. Like people don't understand how gutty that kid was and still is.
Yeah, that's one thing that like you say, because we're in Detroit, we're in a small market. We haven't had a whole lot of team success in who knows how long, if ever. We don't get the respect that's deserved, and it was easy to see that when Matthew went to LA. Nobody really gave him the respect that he deserved. I'm just like, okay, this is still a gunslinger. You give him the tools and you give him a great defense, like it's gonna be problems. I think we saw that halfway through the season last year before they hit a little lull, but then they got it back together going into the postseason.
Yeah, that lull was when they lost Robert Woods and before Odell Beckham got there and sort of meshed, and you could tell nothing was quite right for like a 4-game stretch, but they figured it out and they ended up with the Lombardi Trophy. Is there a part of you that feels like you're a part of that because of all the years you spent with Matthew?
100%. I don't take credit for anything, but 100%, I feel like it's part of me vicariously.
Yeah.
Being able to see him go and win that thing, and then to do it in the fashion in which he did it, which made myself and a lot of us, his former teammates, so proud. The fact that he did it in the first year that he left and switched teams, that's really what made us excited. That's what really made us happy for him because he did exactly what he was supposed to do when they wanted him to do it.
Yeah. How much conversation, or have you had much conversation with him since they won it all?
Oh yeah, I've spoken to him prior and after.
Yeah.
I got my granddad. He's like, "Oh, you got to get my hat signed by Matthew." I'm like, "Granddaddy, I thought you was a Lions fan. I thought you was a Cincinnati fan since you live in Ohio." Now my granddad. He's a fan of any of the guys I played with, are the good people, and Matthew, he's good people.
Yeah, he certainly is. And that commercial he did with the AT&T. So
Amazing.
Even though nothing was wrong with the old phone, I can get the new phone. It was perfect.
It was great. That was a great one.
So let's go to week 1, the 2010 season in Chicago. You catch the pass in the end zone to everybody in the world. It appears that is a game-winning touchdown with 30-plus seconds left in the game. And then you hear Gene Sterator's call. What went through your mind when they said you did not complete the catch?
So before, was it he that made that call?
It was Gene Sterator. It was Gene Sterator.
Why the heck is he on TV making these calls now? Then everybody in the Chicago stadium knew it was a touchdown because you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah,
everybody knew it was a touchdown. Everybody knew it was game over. And then I guess Gene wants to come out. That's where he got famous off of. Okay, that makes sense now.
But I mean, the thing that drove me crazy, it was so clear you were just using the ball to sort of prop yourself up off the ground. You had made the catch. And that play sort of started a 10-year, decade-long, what the hell is a catch conversation in the NFL.
I mean, I'm glad to be a part of it, but not in that fashion. I think they came back a couple of years ago and said it should have been a catch.
Yeah.
I tell everybody when they tell me that, I'm like, okay, well, throw that touchdown on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
It still counts.
Yeah, that's about. Yeah, I mean, cool that you're telling me that now. Doesn't help me. Didn't help the team. You know what I mean? I think that's
like you said. That was game 1.
Yeah, game 1.
It was game 1. It kind of set the tone for the season. It sucked. It hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like that's even worse. If they said, "Yeah, you know what, we screwed it up." Well, now I'm reliving it all over again. You know?
Yes, 100%.
So, do you think they've got it right now on what they consider a catch in the NFL? Because they clearly didn't for a while.
No, I saw a couple plays last year, and I'm just like, they still don't have it right.
Yeah.
I've seen plays. I feel like every year I see something that's just like, I'm like, damn, we have this slow-mo where they break it down to the 10th of a second, and we still can't get it right.
Well, I feel like that's even worse because then the referees are looking at it in a way that isn't natural. You know what I mean? When you slow it, you're always going to find some. It's like taking the Mona Lisa and focusing in on one little picture or point of the painting. Was like, oh, there's a color that's off here. Well, yeah, if you do that, you're going to find a flaw in everything. I think the slow-mo replay actually makes it worse for everybody involved.
I agree. It is kind of, I'm not going to say detrimental, but it is a point where, you can't really visualize, I mean, what really happened in real time.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to take that into consideration a little bit.
Absolutely. So that sort of set that season back for you. What was it like going through that process those years in Detroit where you knew, that you had Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay and they were putting up all these numbers and, you had – it just felt like it was an uphill battle almost every season.
Oh yeah, that's always tough. Because like you say, it. Even from when I first got there, and you had Brett Favre, for 2 years. It's just like, okay, these are the kings of this division. These are the guys we're going to get by. We're going to at least have to beat them at home. You know how hard it is to lose, how hard it is to win at Lambeau Field.
Correct.
And then the rest of the division at the time when we first got there, Chicago was a monster. All 3 teams were really beasts. At the time. When we were playing in there. So it's just knowing, but really Green Bay is the one at the end where we always played them at the end of the season, because oftentimes if we had an opportunity, it's going to go through them if we're going to be getting into the playoffs.
Yeah. So you did make it to the playoffs a couple of years, but the success wasn't there, including that crazy game against the Dallas Cowboys. As a Lions player, I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but like how did that flag get picked up on that defensive? Like it makes no sense that if you don't want to call the penalty, I understand it. But once you throw the flag, how do you pick that flag up and say there was no interference, defensive pass interference here? I could not figure this out.
That's just one I just call it. Just something. It just happens to the Lions.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening anywhere else. Yeah. It just happens to the Lions. Like I've seen some crazy stuff up there. I've seen calls that were just like should have been that weren't there, or vice versa. And it's just like because we're the Lions, we don't get the benefit of the doubt.
That's got to drive you crazy, though, right?
100%. 100. Just like when the referee tells me, I'm like, dude, the dude is just holding me. He's like, well, you weigh like 20 more pounds than him. I was like, okay, well, he's still breaking the rules.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Show me where there's a sliding scale for weight and height and when you can call a foul in the rule book, and then I'll listen to that logic.
Thank you.
I mean, that's like a hack-a-shack in the NFL, man.
That's how they treat LeBron. He's a big guy, and they hack at him going to the lane. They don't flag or blow the whistle sometimes. So it was frustrating. That part of it was frustrating.
But even through all of that, you still managed to put up all these records and all these numbers. And then, of course, you go through that incredible season where you set the record, 1,964 receiving yards. Still the record. By the way, in a 17-game season, hasn't been touched. Still hasn't gotten there. What does that mean to you? What does that record mean to you, considering where you did it and how you did it?
That means so much to me because of the work that went in before every season. And obviously, I try not to, really put in the same kind of work, and if I didn't add something each year. But really halfway through that season, Sean Jefferson, the coach, my receiver coach, was in my ear like, hey, big fella, you got a shot at it. What are you talking about? I'm like, Jerry Rice's record, the all-time record. I'm like, Coach, you realize I got to average almost 200 yards a game to do this? He's like, we can do it. He's just saying it so casually, and I was just like, I'm scratching my head, like, all right, like, yeah, I've done 200-yard games, but in 150s and stuff, but to average those numbers, like, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough to average 100 yards, and but he kept staying after me. He was after the coaches, he's in Matthew's ear. He really pushed me just to really try to perfect my craft. Not only that year, but specifically during that time, every little detail he was on me for, and he didn't just coach me like that. He coaches everybody like that. And that's why all the guys respected him so much. And I appreciate him for just being my coach.
Well, so he put it out there early. Like he said, he put it in your mind early. How much did you think about it as the season went on?
I tried my hardest not to think about it. I really did, but you can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't help it because he's always there. You're at your own pace at this. He's just be in my ear with numbers. I'm just like, man, like, leave me alone. But at the point when we really were within striking range, where we had like 5 games left, and I needed to average like, I don't know, 100 and something yards, 100 and just say like 40 yards a game. I'm like, okay, this is more and more realistic. Like, we can really do this. And then to do it against the home team, Atlanta Falcons, that made it that much sweeter.
So you did set the record, but you came 36 yards short of 2,000. So was there a party who was like, damn, I only got 36 more yards in that final game against the Bears? We'd be talking about a whole different stratosphere.
Oh, man, it'd be totally different, And I think back, I'm like, yeah, that could have been had here. Might have dropped that pass here. Could have been had here, overthrow. But I just always chalk it up to myself like, damn, I'm sure I've probably had at least like 5 or probably 2 drops that would have matched for that amount of yardage. So it's definitely doable.
Yeah, I always find that interesting when I talk to great athletes. They always seem to remember what they didn't accomplish more than what they did accomplish. Why do you think that is?
I think I can speak for myself. It's really just a strive for perfection. Even though knowing that we're not perfect, but really just taking it day by day and really looking at what your weaknesses, obviously knowing what your strengths are, but just taking something day by day and working on it. Like saying, just for instance, it can easily get mundane in what we're doing in football. You're doing the same thing, practicing yada 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 every day. But if you take something like today, I'm gonna work on my footwork. And I'm not gonna just practice it because practicing BS gets you BS. Right. But a perfect practice, you have good results. And maybe one day I'll work on my hand placement. Maybe one day I'll work on this, and really just day by day stacking those attributes up. And over the long run, all those things will just keep continuing to rise. And you look back and boom, there goes a 9-year career. But the fact is I lived in the moment and trying to, perfect my craft each and every day. That's what allowed that time to fly by because we were just having fun and living in the moment and doing your job. And I feel like that's just the way you got to live.
Yeah. Everyone has their favorite, Do you have a favorite catch? Is there I think one that a lot of people remember, you came from 24 down against the Cowboys and they threw it into triple coverage where you were there. It's like, F it, he's going to go get it. You know what I mean? Is there a catch that stands out in your mind more than any other?
Man, there's so many.
By the way, that's a subtle flex right there. What you just said, that's a subtle flex. Is there one? Yeah, there's so many. I did it so often, so great. I just don't know which one to choose.
All right, I got. Dang, that's tough. That really is tough because I have an over the shoulder on the goal line in Oakland to win the game. We had to come back from down in Oakland. I forget what year it was, maybe like 12 or something like that. And had like 200 yards in this game, but it came down to this last drive and this press coverage on literally the goal line. And Matthew threw the ball right at the goal post, the center of the goal post, probably 8 feet high. And it's literally a toe tap in the back of the end zone. I probably had a less than half an inch to spare on the toe tap dude on my hip. And we won the game after that. But really probably my favorite one is one you never seen. I had a toe tap, a reverse toe tap, really. Drew Stanton, we're in Tampa Bay overtime, and he threw me a comeback on the sideline. It was a great route. Got the dude running, left him. He kept on running when I was coming out my break. And I was up against the sideline with nowhere to really maneuver, and the ball was up high, and I had to go up and get it. And the only thing I could touch the ground with was I think it was my heels, and that's all that I could reach. I had to reach up, and no, it's my toes. My heels were over the out of bounds line, and my toes were the only thing that dragged. And that was probably one of my favorite catches because it was a great route followed up by a great catch in overtime to help us win the game.
See, now that should be the memory that everyone thinks of when they think of Drew Stanton. But instead, they think of that ridiculous sideline celebration when he was a member of the Arizona Cardinals. See, this is the problem with Drew Stanton's career, right? That's the problem.
I love Drew too, man.
He's all-time great. I played a couple of golf tournaments with him. So, Drew, I know you're listening and watching somewhere. Had to bring it up. All right, why don't we take our break here? When we come back, we'll talk about something that you just said, a 9-year career, because I think a lot of people were caught by surprise when you decided to hang him up. We'll come back with more of this Half-Forgotten History episode with Calvin Johnson right after this. All right, time for a little Megatron trivia brought to you by our friends at Mercedes-Benz Sprinter Vans, unlocking your potential to drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. We all know him as Megatron, right? So here's the question for Calvin Johnson. Which fellow wide receiver and former teammate gave Calvin Johnson that awesome nickname, Megatron? Listen for the answer at the top of the next break. You open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter and you're opening more than doors. You're unlocking potential to do your own thing, be your own boss, and live out your own dreams. With 16 body types, your choice of a gas or diesel engine, and thousands of ways to customize, a Sprinter van is capable and versatile enough to help you drive your ambitions as far as you want to take them. So go ahead, unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. All right, back with Megatron. That sounds better. Calvin Johnson on this episode of Half Forgotten History. So right before the break, you talked about a 9-year career. You shocked a lot of people when you announced you were retiring after the 2015 season. How long had you been thinking about it?
About a year at that time. After the prior season, I went home and sat on the couch with my dad. I was like, man, I don't think my body can take it anymore. I don't really want to put in the work that it takes to be at the level just because the body just doesn't feel good putting in that work. And he literally said, he's like, you think you could do it again? And I sat there and I thought about it for a second before I answered the question. And he was like, since you're thinking about it, you can do it one more time. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'll go back one more time. And but I knew at the time, I knew before the whole season that it was going to be my last.
Did you tell anybody else besides your close relatives? Did anybody else know? Did anybody on the team know at that time?
The funny thing is, we'll be sitting there at lunch, and that same year, Kobe had announced his retirement during that football season.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm gonna be up out of here like Kobe. After the season, man, I'm retiring. I'm done. And I'll be saying that in the lunchroom, and it's funny, nobody took it serious until I was actually said and done. And after, I'm like, oh shoot. And then my buddy Corey Fuller and a couple of the guys were like, man, you were serious, huh, the whole time, weren't you? I was like, y'all thought I was playing, huh? And I was just like, yeah, it's just really just a combination of, like I say, the body, and really just the team wasn't really at the time going anywhere.
Well, it's interesting because it doesn't happen a lot, but it's started to happen, I think, more and more since you made that announcement. Hell, this past offseason, Ali Marpet, offensive lineman, I think played 6 or 7 years in the league, made it to a Pro Bowl, was an All-Pro, won a Super Bowl. He decided to hang him up. I think we're going to see more and more of this, right? Because when you see the numbers that you can make and realize, okay, I have fortunes for several lifetimes, but I have a life that I want to live. Do you feel like you're a trailblazer along those lines?
Um, I can't say I was a trailblazer because there's been other people that have done it. Patrick Willis, he stepped away from the game, because of I believe it was issues that he had in playing the game, and at the end of the day, that's what the results too. It's issues that you suffer from playing the game. Unfortunately, I wasn't forced away through a crazy injury like a lot of guys are. I was fortunate in that capacity just to walk away. But at the end of the day, it was just what the game was taking away, and it was really, it's pain and it's quality of life that it was taking away, and that's things that I just wasn't willing to let go.
Yeah, it's interesting too because again, I'm not trying to make this a Lions thing, but you could argue two of the greatest players, or maybe the two greatest players to ever play for Detroit, both sort of had a surprise retirement. Barry Sanders and yourself.
And I mean, from what all that I understand, there are very similar reasons. You're on a team that doesn't seem like they want to, take the next step, but they want you to hang around, and it just wasn't. It was just one sided, put it like that.
So you've been away for what, 6 years? God, that's not even seem possible. You've been out for 6 years already. How was the adjustment? Like, was it? Did you know right away you made the right decision, or there were some? Should I have done this? Should I go back?
It was right away. I mean, when I was playing, I was just looking forward to the day I was able to just go sit down and do nothing, sit on my couch, wake up in the morning with nothing to do. That lasted all of about 2 weeks. We're so used to having structure, throughout, playing sports from being a young man to college to the NFL. We've always had a structured life. And I think that, the thing for me was really deviating from that, not having that sense of not necessarily being, but what am I supposed to be doing right now? What's next? That's really what the question was for me. I was going to do my real estate thing. I got my foundation. But I feel like there was still more to be had, still more to do. And for me, I grew up. My mom. I grew up in the church. It's really just about how can I serve? How can I help others be better? And I feel like I found some ways that we can help other people better themselves, help other people better their quality of life. And in turn, I mean, that's helpful for us too. It's a win-win.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to get into that in just a second because it's really fascinating what you're doing now. But before we move on from the football, is there someone in the league now that you watch and you're like, hey, looks like me?
Yes and no. I'm trying to think.
Or the plays like you, like that you see some of your game and the way they play. By the way, I just want to say I love that you're having a hard time with this. It just shows you how freaking awesome you were again. Just pointing that out.
I mean, there's guys that make plays, but then there's guys that make plays, but you're a diva too. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think all the antics are necessary. I mean, make your plays, do your celebration and all that, but I don't think all that off the field distractions are necessary. And I feel like that's part of being a complete pro. And so that's when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, okay, who's being a complete pro? I tried to model myself as a pro in that manner, because I grew up. We grew up seeing all the guys that were out there cutting up, and it was fun a lot of the times. But there's some things that weren't so great, and I just didn't want to be associated with and putting my name or my family's name in a bad light or foolishness. Because I viewed this as a hugely serious endeavor in playing in the NFL and everything that goes with it, and treating your body as a business. So I really didn't see it as a place to play around, and fool around. So guys that are out there serious that I really like right now, I don't know. I love Jamar Chase and what he's doing. I love his counterpart Jefferson that's playing up Minnesota. There with the Vikings. I mean, they're totally different kind of players as far as body shape and style, but I mean, I love what they're putting out as far as some young.
It's really funny that you use that word diva because I, for years, have said the wide receiver position in the NFL might as well be called wide redivas, right? Because everything is on show. They always say they're open. They're never covered. They complain. They're putting all this stuff out on social media. Look at my workouts. Look at all this. It's like, I get it. Okay, just catch the ball.
And that's another thing, man. I feel like that. I feel like that stuff. I'm not gonna say it's fake because people
Sure.
are using social media, and some people use it the right way. But I never felt like the things that you do that you have to broadcast everything. Like if I am doing this workout, I have to show the whole world. Or if I'm donating money to this certain foundation or whatnot, I got to share it with the whole world what I'm doing. I feel like that's kind of not defeating the purpose, but it's not coming from the best place.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because, you definitely were not a diva. There's no question about that. I did not put you in that category. Just wanted to state that on the record. But you mentioned finding a purpose and serving, and you have done that now. I want to talk about what you're doing now. So why don't we take our second break here with Megatron, and we'll come back on this episode of Half Forgotten History and talk about where he's focusing his time and energy right now. Stay with us. We're coming right back. All right, back with the answer to our Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van trivia question about Calvin Johnson. The person that gave him the nickname Megatron, his former teammate and wide receiver with the Lions, Roy Williams. Roy was really good at giving nicknames. Catching, not so much, but that's a whole different story. Now back to the rest of our Half Forgotten History episode with Calvin Johnson. Welcome into an NFL Week 3 edition of Trey's Trends, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Look, we all know the NFL brings the drama, and that was certainly the case in Week 2. Here's what happened in Week 2 on Sunday. The Jets, the Dolphins, and the Cardinals all came from at least 13 points down in the fourth quarter to come back and win as road dogs. Only the second time that's happened in NFL history on the same day. Miami is 2-0 thanks to Tua Tagovailoa throwing 6 touchdown passes in that comeback win over Baltimore, tying Dan Marino and Bob Greasy for the Dolphins team record. But to get to 3-0, they're going to have to beat the juggernaut, the 2-0 Buffalo Bills, who annihilated the Tennessee Titans on Monday Night Football 41-7. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, beating Buffalo has been a problem for the Miami Dolphins. In the last 7 games, Buffalo is 7-0 straight up and 5-2 against the spread, winning those games by an average margin of 19.7 points. And oh, by the way, they swept the season series a year ago, outscoring Miami 61-11, including a 35-0 shutout Week 2 last season in South Florida. Find more of Trey's Trends by following Caesar Sportsbook at Caesar Sports on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, back with Megatron, Calvin Johnson on Half Forgotten History. So pain and taking care of your body was a big reason why you left after 9 years in the NFL. And now you're sort of launching on a new career to make sure people understand how to use cannabis to help manage that pain. The company's called Primitiv, and it uses nanotechnology with cannabis? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so originally we started as cultivators, processors, and retailers. But the next phase for us is our company called Primitiv Performance, which will highlight nano emulsion, which is basically tiny particles that are able to bypass the intestinal tract and get right into the bloodstream. And in turn, creating a more bioavailability. You're actually getting the medicine, one, more of the medicine to your bloodstream, but 2, at a quicker pace. If you think about an edible, I don't know if you're familiar, but an edible takes almost like an hour. Yeah. It takes almost an hour to really to take its effects. Whereas nanotechnology allows that same process to occur in 5 to 15 minutes. At the end of the day, we're really focused on just really creating new and innovative applications of cannabis. And I believe that one, with education, that helps destigmatize the plant. Because all we think about, one, is how you take it adult use or recreationally, whether smoking a joint or using it in a bong, and that's what's been heavily stigmatized. But if we can obviously show different applications to these cannabinoids, educate people on how cannabinoids are work within their body, teach people about their endocannabinoid system, which all of us have, I think that a lot more progress will be had. And with cannabis. But like I say, we have a platform, we have visibility. So I think it's only right for me to use my platform and visibility to advocate for not just cannabis, but plant medicines in general. Because like I said, we call ourselves Primitiv because, like you see on the hat, because plant medicine in general has been used since the early ages.
Yeah.
People have used these as healers from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
You know, anything for me that is not a natural substance, I try to keep those things out of my body. I've operated like that from when I came into the league with our supplements that we use. Anything derived of the earth can go into my body. Anything man-made, not necessarily all things man-made are bad, but those things that are synthetic, those things carry toxins. You know, I was talking to you remember Nate Burleson?
Oh, sure.
On TV everywhere now. You know, we're talking to him recently, and I remember he telling me about a time when he went to the doctor, because I remember Nate, we played together. We was get the shots and all this stuff before the game just so we could play. He's like, man, I went to the doctor to do a blood test, and they're like, man, the doctor told him, I've never seen somebody with so many toxins in their blood is so young. And I'm just like, man, goodness gracious. I'm just like, but I get it though, because that's what we did. We did whatever we could to stay on the field. That was our job. That's how we took care of our families. So we were just going to do whatever we could. But what if there's an alternative? You know, we want to be able to provide an alternative for folks to deal with their pain, mental and cognitive issues.
Do you feel like the NFL is beginning to slowly embrace that a little more? I know they've sort of destigmatized. You have to really, really have so much in your system to be popped for a test these days. But do you think they're beginning to understand? Because you talk to so many players like yourself. Jason Taylor used to take those shots in his foot all the time, just to the Toradol, just to get up there and be able to play. Do you think there's a sort of a seed change in the way the NFL is looking at it, and I would hope they would be more responsive to so many former players saying this is a better way for us to manage the pain that comes with playing the game?
Well, I think the first part of the change in this whole thing came like probably halfway through my career when they kind of put a stop to the opioid abuse within the NFL. Yeah. And that was before the huge, opioid epidemic really, really, really caught traction in the media. So they was already heading that way. And I mean, nowadays where the NFL is, they allow guys to have a little bit more in their system, but I don't see them really opening it up, and because I feel like they're going to use that as a bargaining chip when the next CBA comes around. I don't see them allowing something like that just to give it away when they know that it's such a huge bargaining chip. Yes, I believe they will, but they're obviously going to be slower than other leagues, probably like the NBA or such. But I mean, we would love to be able to be in those rooms to try to educate these folks on the healing powers of the plant, 100%.
Yeah, and I know you just opened up a dispensary somewhere in Michigan, right?
Yep, in Niles, Michigan. Yeah, we opened up.
Niles, that's right. Yeah. And is there a website where people can check out what you're doing? Is it primitiv.com? What is it?
It's primitivgroup.com. That's primitive without the E in the end, primitivgroup.com. We also have our merch site tagged to that. You can see everything that we have going on. You can follow us on our Instagram and I guess we might have Facebook. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever social platform that exists, I'm sure Primitiv will be on there in some way, shape, or form going forward. Calvin, man, it was great to catch up with you. Obviously, one of the greatest I ever saw play the game. As a fan, it sucked that you left after 9 years, but I totally get it, and I totally understand it, and I certainly think that more and more players might look at the end of their career the way you chose to end your career based on all the knowledge that people have now, what they know about the things that come with playing the game for a long period of time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on. I just want to I just encourage those guys, those players, man, just to use their platform and their visibility, want to affect change and to use it to make new relationships. I think that's one thing that I've probably learned from the great Curtis Martin, man, is just using your opportunity while you have it, especially in the NFL, to form certain relationships, because those relationships, they're what's going to carry you a long way.
Yeah, the relationships will last, but the nicknames will change. Butterfingers to Megatron. That is a complete 180.
That's funny. That's good. Thanks, Trey, man. It's great to see you, dude.
So thanks again to Calvin Johnson for joining us. It's always cool to see a player who had so much success in the league find something else that fuels his passion outside of his playing days, and it certainly seems like Calvin has found that. We wish him all the best. Coming up next week, well, if you could pick a polar opposite wide receiver just physically from Calvin Johnson, it might be Julian Edelman. But the production was pretty fantastic. And of course, he's got some great stories about what it was like to work with the evil emperor himself, Bill Belichick. Julian Edelman joins us next week on Half Forgotten History. We'll see you then.